Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Micah. Today we are going to be talking about some eyeshadow palettes. Yay! It's my favorite topic, as you all know. I have tried 10 new eyeshadow palettes again. New to me. These aren't necessarily all new to the market, but these are some palettes that I have been trying in the past couple of months. So what this video is going to be is to give you my full thoughts on all 10 of these and to also show you swatches and looks that I did. So I'll be inserting some pictures as I'm talking about these different palettes. Since I've got 10 here, well, a little bit more than 10 because I grouped a few of them together as one thing. Let's just get started. We have the Lime Crime Venus XL2. I keep getting the name wrong of this thing. So it's the Venus XL2, which is like this green one. And I remember when this came out, this palette got quite a lot of slack for having a much more interesting cover than what's going on inside. So let me open this up for you. This is what the palette looks like. I think a lot of people would have wanted some of those more vibrant green and peaches that it has, like almost neon colors on the cover, and that's just not what you're gonna get here. And I think that that's why a lot of people were disappointed with the inside, and I also heard quite a lot of people saying about this palette that they didn't like it very much. So that was why when this was released, I wasn't really interested in this at first, until I spotted it in real life. I first saw this in New York. I think, was it Riley Rose? Was this makeup store that I found, and I was able to swatch it there and look at it, and I was like, you know, that is actually the kind of color story that is very much up my street. So I decided to buy it. A couple of months later, when we had Black Friday and there was a sale going on, I picked this up, and I was able to finally play around with it, I think a couple of months ago now. And I have to say, you guys, this palette, yes, I get to critiques, but if you are fair-skinned and you prefer cool tones, then this palette is a really, really nice one. This is not your warm-toned lover's dream. It's not very deep. It's not very dark. Again, it is more on the cool tone side, and it's more aimed at my type of skin tone. That's how I would describe this palette. In terms of warm tones, you get this one and this one that are true warm tones, and everything else is more on the neutral / cooler end of the spectrum. And if you're not very fair, then a shade like Sage just probably won't show up very well on your complexion, because this is all very muted. And I think that, again, on people with more warm undertones, this can look quite ashy. And if you have a deeper complexion, then these shades can definitely sort of like muddy together quite easily. On me, however, I was able to create some stunning neutral looks with a twist. And if you know anything about me, even though we have plenty of color going on in today's video as well, I generally like neutral with a twist. I like boring neutrals, but I also like something like this where we have some greens to play around with it, as well as a lot of rosy tones as well. It's almost as if, you know, Urban Decay's Naked 3 had a pop of green to play into the mix with a couple of warm tones. It does have a little bit of depth because you do get a nice deeper, like dark brown shade, which I appreciate because I don't really like blacks in my palettes. I feel I have too many of them and I hardly ever use them apart from liner. The shimmers in here are quite thin, so you do have to pack them on and foil them. But when you do that, it works quite well. And these shades, for instance, are really, really stunning inner corner highlights. So I was able to really nicely make this palette work. Locust is perhaps one of my favorite shades in the palette. It has a duochrome to it, so it's that like blue brown, so like dirty oil slick kind of shade. Really, really pretty all over the lid. And I feel that just especially in the shimmers in this palette, you just get a little bit more of that oomph. It's a subtle oomph. It's not like boom pigment, or it's not boom color shift. But for instance, also Laurel I found was very, very stunning in the pan. It just looks like a gold, like a goldy taupey kind of shade. But then on the eyes, it just really catches the light and really makes sure your eye look just really pop and stand out. I also really like Ivy, and like I said, Myth as well, I quite enjoy. And also Eve I liked, Thorn. Like there was just so many shades in here, and I feel that even though you get just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mattes, for me that's perfect because some of these more satiny shimmers can work both in the crease as well as on the lid. So I find that this is the versatility and the kind of palette that is up my street, but I do understand that some people may not like this. Then the palette that to me, like I kind of slept on this one, which is why I'm only reviewing it right now, and that's the ABH and Jacky Aina palette. When this was released, I wasn't entirely sure. I thought it might be too deep and not exactly meant for my skin tone. And that's why I was like, I'm not entirely sure. Is this really going to add anything to my collection? I even spotted this in real life at Sephora when I was in New York. And I thought, no, I don't need it. You know, I don't need this palette. And then it kept popping up in everyone's like end of the year best of palettes. Even people with fair skin tones who were showing looks and swatches and talking about how they were using this palette and how it really worked for them. And I was like, I hope I can still get this, because that's when I wanted this palette. So I was able to find it on Beauty Bay on sale after Christmas, and I finally got around to playing with this. What I really like about this palette are actually these like berries and purples. That's my favorite part. But I also quite like this quad over here with the browns and like this sponsored shade is probably one of my favorites. And I also really like Lithuation. But there are a couple of colors that, you know, on me, Zam and Wigglies, not really my color story. Again, I quite like this quad together. And then these four together. Trust Issues is a really pretty inner corner highlight kind of shade. Dollars, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to pronounce that. But this is like a really nice green toned gold. So I do prefer that if we need to go gold, that has the right undertone for me. But I just feel that some shades are a bit warm for what I personally like. But I do really like this, and then these four, as I mentioned. The quality of this, aced it. Aced it. And that's why I think so many people put this in their end of year like favorites list, because in terms of quality, I mean, the last ABH palette I bought before this was the Riviera, and I feel that this is definitely a step up. Like this, in terms of pigmentation, blendability, it's stunning. It's a really stunning palette, and I think it's quite a unique color story to have. It's a bit more neutral, but it is quite deep, so I do feel everything turns out to be a smoky eye on me, which if I want to go for that look, I will use that, and it definitely has a couple of special shades that will make me reach for this palette too. Plus, packaging. It's stunning. I mentioned color because I definitely pulled in some colorful palettes. Step number one would be the Slush 2 by September Rose Cosmetics. And this palette is a matte rainbow. Let me show you. And this is a bit more of a true rainbow than their Slush 1, which is almost brighter, more neon pastel-y almost. And that also has a couple of shimmers, whereas this is more like saturated, true rainbowy kind of colors. It has sort of like your gradient of like deeper to lighter shades here as well. You get a white, but you don't get like anything like a black or anything like that. The deepest it will go is Blue Steel, which is like a navy, and then this really deep purpley shade as well. I was able to pull some stunning looks out of this, and in my colorful eyeshadow palette video, I also mentioned that this palette is one where I feel it can replace the Certified Tropical Wonders palette for me, mainly because you get quite a few options for oranges. So, and I feel that the orange spectrum is a bit lacking in the Tropical Wonders. You get a good red in here as well, but then you also get those bright pinks. But for me, like this side of the palette is my favorite. So the blues and the purples. I have to say that the yellow and the greens were my favorite. Those were perhaps a little weaker, but overall, I was able to pull some stunning looks out of this. Very sort of sunset eyes kind of thing. I think that if you are looking for a good rainbow palette, then if you're umming and ahhing between the Tropical Wonders and this one, Tropical Wonders may be a bit easier to get because the Certify is available on Beauty Bay. But this one is great. You can get it off their website, and I think this is a little less expensive than the Certify is. I also tried the OPV Tropical Dreams eyeshadow palette, and this was a new brand to me. I had never tried any OPV Beauty before, and I was sort of looking at this palette, and then they had the Black Friday sale, so I was like, I might as well try this. And this is what the palette looks like. It is sort of like in a similar vein to the Venus XL2, it has a lot of interesting shades and that work well on my complexion. We get this orange and also this warm tone here, which I'm like, nah, maybe not. I feel that these two shades are quite similar, and this gold as well. So there are like 5 warm tones in here, maybe 6 that I'm like, I could have done without it. But what this palette also has is blues, greens, and teals. So if you know that, that's sort of like my color story, right? So a blue, green, tealy kind of look, especially these 3 here at the top. They are so stunning, so amazing. This is the kind of palette I feel that sort of takes Juvia's Place's the Tribe palette, which has the greens and the oranges as well, and then takes it to the next level. You know what I mean? It just gives you more options. If you want something more curated, then I think the Juvia's Place one may be better for you, but this is really nice. And I was blown away with the pigmentation and the blendability of these shades, especially because this smells quite cheaply made. So if you smell these eyeshadows, they smell like cheap makeup, which, you know, I don't like it being perfumey scented makeup at all, but this is sort of taking the scent thing to a whole nother level, you could say. So that's why I was very much like, how will this work? Is it, you know, if makeup smells like that, is it going to be good quality? But I have to say that when I put this on the eyes, I never got a bad allergic reaction. I was able to pull some stunning looks out of this. I was super excited to use this, and I'm sure I will use it again, but I will definitely sort of go for my favorites. So I think it's Male, and Bora Bora, Pipi, Maui, Kauai. Oh, sorry, my island sort of Pacific names aren't really on point in English. And also like this like bluey shade. This dark brown is really nice too. It's just stunning. It's a really stunning palette. I definitely think that more people should be talking about this because this is one you don't hear a lot about. Sticking to the colorful stuff, Juvia's Place Warrior 3. This is one that I tried in June. And this is Juvia's Place's like updated version of the Zulu, I would say. It is more of a rainbow color story again, but with more saturated, deeper shades. You get 7 mattes and 2 shimmers. And that is also where I find this palette is a bit lacking in terms of shimmers. I would have liked to see a little bit more dimension or a little difference when it comes to the shimmers, because it's a blue and like a gray, purpley, dewy, chromy kind of shade. And I feel that these 2 shimmers only go with some of the shades in the palette, but with these very warm tones, like the red and the yellow, and well, this translates more like a pink on my complexion, so it works, but it doesn't really go. So for me, the color story isn't perfect. So for instance, these blues and the purple, love it. The pinks and the purple, love it. But what to do with these 3? Like, I didn't really get it. So for me, it would have been nice if maybe the red was like another shimmer that would have gone better with the green and the yellow. That's probably what I'm looking for, but I do have to say that this shimmer is a really stunning and unique shade. This purple, stunning. This pink, stunning. This is sort of like my go-to look in the palette. Yeah, Juvia's Place Warrior 3 hasn't knocked my favorite Juvia's Place palette from the throne, which would be the Tribe palette actually. This one, it's nice. It's nice to have. Is this a must-have? Could I do without it? I think so. Last but not least, in terms of like colorful, I have a couple of other things that are more colorful, but for like truly vibrant, this is the Sugarpill Fun Size palette. I had heard many mixed reviews about this because it has some like truly like bright shades and then these more like pastels. And I have to say that this one surprised me, but because of all those mixed reviews that I heard, this was just, you know, I wasn't expecting too much. I thought, pastels, will it really work? This is Easter in a palette for me. So I was wearing this a lot around that time, sort of like the end of April, and it was perfect for that. These are very springy, vibrant shades, but still, because they aren't like boom pigment. You can build them up, you can really make them work, and I felt I was able to pull some stunning looks out of this, especially this Twitch shade that I really liked, and also 8-bit, which is like a periwinkle. We all know how I feel about periwinkle. Love that. I do feel though that these two pinks are a little bit samey on the eyes. So Rage Quit and Level Up, I felt we didn't need both. However, I can see in the entire color story why they make sense, because Rage Quit is a pink but with a warm undertone, and Level Up is a pink but with a cool undertone. So this pink goes better with sort of like these shades here, whereas this pink goes better with the other shades over here. So I can see why they are there. It's just that if you put these two pinks on together on the lid, there isn't much of a difference. So not sure. And Continue, question mark, is a nice sort of like chartreusey kind of lime, sort of muted green, yellowy kind of shade. It's really that in-between, hard to define kind of shade. I love this in the inner corner. So these shades are really stunning. We get a mint. Yeah, this is definitely a colorful palette with a nice twitch, because it says Twitch in the palette, I'm saying that. This is a colorful palette with a nice twist to it. Now, let's bring it back to basics a little bit, and that would be the BH Cosmetics Fairy Lights palette. This palette I picked up during also a Black Friday sale, and it's a pretty palette. I bought this because I tried the Royal Affair by BH last year, and I like that palette, but I wasn't too impressed with the color story. So quality-wise, it was okay, but I just felt that some of the colors were a bit samey or very similar to what I already owned in my collection. It had a couple of really stunning standout shades, but I didn't really see myself reaching for it a whole lot. And I have to say that I feel the same way about this. I really wanted to love this, you guys, but in the end, I just felt it was a bit bland, because your eye is drawn to these pretty pinks over here and these blues. But I felt that a lot of these pinks weren't very distinct on the eye. The only one that truly showed up was this like brightest color here, but the other ones just didn't do very much. And then this palette is just a neutral cool tone palette with a pop of blue. And that to me is something I already have. I think that the look I did with the blues was perhaps my favorite one. It's not unique enough to really say like, wow, this really adds something to my collection. I've never seen this before. Again, quality-wise, there isn't that much wrong with this palette, but I do have to say that I think that not all BH Cosmetics palettes are created equal, because I also tried the Love in London palette, which I love. That is, I don't know, there's something about that formula, about that color story that really has my heart. Whereas this one, I was not impressed. I was not impressed. I'm terribly sorry if you do love this palette. It is a nice one, but if you're like me and you're someone with a lot of eyeshadow, this is just not anything that's going to really add anything. And then I told you there would be a couple of palettes that I would be grouping together, and that is this bunch. I finally got around to trying my Collidos palettes. These are the Futurism palettes. I bought this in a bundle for the Chinese New Year. They were doing some sort of deal. Because of COVID-19, it took a while for them to get here. It took like a good 2 months. But I got them, I bought them, and now I've tried them. So let's chat about all 5 real quickly. So we have the Sci-Fi Green palette, which is the Futurism 1. They all come with this little sleeve. And this was the one that, before I tried these, I was the most excited for. Because a lot of people were comparing this to the Melt Gemini, which is coming up in a minute. And I just really wanted to try this because I thought it was a really nicely curated color story as well. I just felt that this is the kind of palette that isn't very unique anymore. I mean, I do really like these 3 greens, really lovely. But I feel that this section pulls a bit more golden toned. And I feel I already have other things like that in my collection. I already mentioned how I feel about blacks, even though this is one of the best blacks now in my collection. I mean, a lot of people are raving about how good this black is. It is a really good black. It is a really good black. And I also feel that, for instance, this palette would have worked better with a dark brown, because then this mustard also makes a bit more sense, I feel. So for me, even though I quite like the quality of this one and I can see why so many people like it, it wasn't my favorite out of the 5. Next up is the Futurism 2, which is the Cyber Bronze palette. And this has to be my least favorite out of the 5. So I just feel this isn't very unique. And that's because it's the most neutral one in the bunch. We get some really nice standard brown. So I feel like as a little family, if you have all 5, you kind of have everything that you would like to do in terms of eyeshadow, because you have your matte black and over here you get your like neutrally brown shades. In this palette though, I felt that apart from the silver, the shimmers just didn't really stand out to me. I have other shimmers like this already in my collection. I quite like the red and I like the combination of the red and the silver for sure. But I'm not sure this really adds anything to my collection, even though I did like the quality of this one and it worked quite well. The Futurism 3, which is the Astro Pink, this has to be up there as one of my favorites out of the bunch. Let me take out the little slab. Here again, we get some like neutrally browns and then this really nice like lavender sort of shimmery shade. We get a berry, we get a shimmering black, and this turquoise. Now, what I've been finding out as I was wearing these is that a lot of people aren't telling you that this is actually a duochrome. It is. I do have to say though that these more flaky shimmers in the Collidos palettes are a little bit more difficult to work with. You do have to layer them, foil them, do the whole 9 yards to really get a good look, which I don't mind doing. And I also felt that some of these like deeper matte shades could be a bit patchy and skipping as I applied them to the eyes. So while I get the hype about these, I don't think that they are necessarily worth the hype all that much, because I feel I have eyeshadow palettes with similar quality that may be a little cheaper than this. The 4th one is the VR Neon, and this one and also the next one were part of a different bundle. So you can get them each separately. You can get them as a bundle of 3, the first 3, or you can get the bundle of 5. And when they say neon, they mean neon. In here you get 4 very nice bright matte shades, and this is why I now don't need to own the Melt Radioactive kind of thing, because this palette kind of gives me everything I need. These are really nice bright mattes, and that's also why this is also one of my favorites. This pink shimmer, so stunning. I keep telling how I want to try more colorful shimmers, and these little palettes definitely deliver on that. So that's something I really appreciate. But my favorite is also the last one that they came out with, which is the Futurism 5 Electro Turquoise. And this is truly unique in terms of its color story. It is one that you look at and you go, huh? What should I do with this? I put this in a Get Ready With Me the other day, so make sure you check that out in the eye above if you'd like to. This is a stunning palette. That orange may throw you off a little bit, but I have to say that it pairs really nicely with the brown. The brown is one that does have that skipping quality, and also this shimmer in the middle is a bit more of a duochrome, but it does need that extra work of layering it. And the same goes for this chunky glitter. So the chunkier, like glittery, shimmery kind of shades definitely require a little bit more work, but if you put in the work, the looks you create with these are incredibly stunning. And we have 2 more palettes left, and they are both by Melt. Let's talk about the Gemini first. I just mentioned that the Sci-Fi Greens by Collidos is mentioned as being a sort of dupe or alternative to the Melt Gemini palette. And I have to disagree with that, because the Melt Gemini, yes, it has those greens and a black and those browns, so I can definitely see where they got the inspiration from, but I feel that this is less golden toned. This is more true greens, and this is more like bronzy, more warm toned. It's less gold, it's less yellow, you could say. This has richer colors, I feel, that are still grungy and yummy, and so this is, to me, a little bit more up my street than the Kaleido Sci-Fi Green. I would recommend this over the other one. I have to say, I bought this because I really like the quality of the Myrte palette. I had only tried Stack so far by Melt. Love the quality of the ones I've tried as well. And I mean, the green bit is where it's at for me, of course, but you do get a really nice mustard brown in here as well, and the mustard with the greens will work too. You get your nice like neutrally brown shades here as well. This shade called Luna is really pretty too. The one shade I don't care for in the palette is Gemini. And this is of course very matte. You all know I love a matte to shimmer ratio that almost favors shimmers over mattes. So this to me is a bit too matte, which brings me to my last palette. And that last palette is the Melt Smoke Sessions, because I felt that these two together can really sort of give me the shimmers I need combined with the mattes that I need. And I'm not sure if the Smoke Sessions was ever intended to bring that, because this favors shimmers over mattes. And these green shades, oops, I'm sticking, oh no! Did you see that? I just stuck my finger in and I lost half the pan. Oh no, can I put you back? Yes, this had a bit of an accident when it came in. It had a bit of a gap, so now I've hit it a little too hard and the shadow broke. So I'll try to fix it in a minute. I just need to keep the palette like this now. But yeah, these greeny shimmers can go really well with the matte greens in the Gemini, I think. This gives you a matte green and a matte like murky brownie kind of shades, and then more of those golds. So these shimmers I feel work better with the brownie tones in the Gemini. So I feel that these two together can really complement each other. Many people are saying that these two shades are too dark for the crease. I had no issues. Yes, they are dark, but if you use a very light hand and you only like dip your brush in, you can build them up, but they are very intensely saturated shades. So that's something to look out for. And yeah, so it is a bit fragile. Melt shadows usually are. So yeah, I'm gonna try and see if I can selfish this in a minute. All right, so that's something that I'm gonna have to fix in a minute to see if I can sort of very gently scoop it back in. But yeah, those are the 10 palettes, well, a little more than 10 because we had 5 Collidos palettes, but the 10 eyeshadow palettes that I wanted to try. There was only one, sort of maybe 2 things that weren't really what I wanted from it in the end. Everything else I absolutely adore, and I will go back to it at some point. But guess what? I'm still in the midst of trying more eyeshadow palettes. So next month, which will be August eyeshadow palette month over here on this channel, I will be hopefully doing another one of these when I've tried 10 more eyeshadow palettes to update you about. So thank you very much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make 3 new videos a week on this channel. And as I mentioned, August will be all about eyeshadow palettes. So stay tuned for that one. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.